I have with me the man who fought for a very, very long time, nearly 8 years, and then got that 5-judge bench. Many congratulations at that time, we said, and you came and spoke in the lawns of Supreme Court. But today, the government, the President of India has promulgated an ordinance, issued an ordinance, and said very categorically that, he set up an authority with the Chief Minister, and you've seen all these backdrops. Is this in a way, and the government is arguing that the constitutional bench judgment goes against the basic structure, and that is why they have come ahead with this?
Okay, I'll be very pointed because the time is limited. But let me start with a lighter point, not entirely in a lighter note though. When you lose the match, you change the rules. Like a bad loser, you try and change the rules. Like a graceless loser. And that's what's happened before the ink is dry on a constitution bench. Second preliminary point, it is doubtful, highly doubtful, whether Parliament as a whole, both houses, will allow this ordinance ever to come into an act. But be that as it may, on the merits, there are some startling, interesting points. You understand, I hope, and everybody else, that an ordinance, which is equal to an act, let us assume, cannot change the constitution. A constitution can be changed only by a constitutional amendment. Well, this ordinance seeks to change several fundamental features of the constitution, that part which has 239AA for Delhi. The whole purpose of making Delhi the only unique territory, which is not merely a union territory as is commonly believed, but a union territory plus, namely with a constitutional status, a special status, though not a full state, that is tried to be negatived by an ordinance. On the face of it, therefore, it has to be struck down. You cannot remove the basis of either the 2018 Constitution Bench judgment or the 2023 judgment 2 weeks ago without removing the underlying basis. You cannot say, I, the legislature, pass a law which nullifies a judgment. And you cannot remove the basis of these judgments which are constitutional underpinning, not statutory. A constitutional underpinning cannot be removed by an ordinance or an act. Now lastly, what are those constitutional underpinnings? One, this whole idea of creating this 239AA was to give a greater federal decentralized power to Delhi beyond union territories. Do union territories have only 3 subjects given to the central government? No. Second, it is the very essence of parliamentary democracy that the national capital territory shall be in a large measure almost like a state. These are all underpinnings of constitution. Can you remove that? Thirdly, the Supreme Court judgment itself says a very large swathe of the constitution, like part 14, I don't want to sound technical, which gives civil service power, 309, all the special powers, etc., 311 to remove. That has all been held in the judgment, the constitutional part in part 14, to apply in favor of the NCT government, not the LG. Fourth, the LG is only somebody who acts on the aid and advice by that's a fundamental rule of the constitution.
So
by
now what
mere
now?
act, you cannot do it. So on and so forth. Now, having given you these 6-7 reasons, obviously it will be challenged.
You will move because Supreme Court is not functioning today. No, it's a vacation bank.
See, what they have done is they have bought time, no doubt. It will be moved. I'm not going to be telling you when it will be moved, how it will be moved. They are going to try to make the process as the punishment. They will buy time. So what? Buy time. The first time stops running in July middle, when we will see whether the ordinance will become an act. The second time will stop running when this court, at some point of time, according to me, respectfully I say it, I believe that the court should and will stay it, but of course we have to take a chance. But I want to say one more thing. How farcical can you be? How vendetta prone can you be? You have tried to think that people are fools. You've made a clause there in this new ordinance which says, Sunil Prabhu shall be the head of this, making him a head of a minority institution himself, where he's a minority. 2 bureaucrats will overrule him. And the bureaucrats, the civil service, will not be answerable to the executive political executive. The first principle of civil service, who does it answer to? Political executive. Here the civil service will answer to 2 more civil servants. It's a joke. And even in
it goes against the very heart of the
constitutional principle, not the statutory. Can you change that constitutional principle by a statute? Ordinance is only a statute. And even that diminished role of the CM, sitting as a minority in his own committee, is nullified by an LG sitting as a super top of all these 3. So I think it's
But
a
in,
joke.
but in your own admission, you're saying that you have lost out on time because it'll be July because you can't get a stay on the vacation bench, and never have I seen in recent times an ordinance being stayed.
Let us not speculate about those strategies. But I am confident that as and when the court takes it up according to our strategy, it should be stayed in the interim. Certainly in the final hearing, it should be quashed.
One last point, and that is something that the government of India has argued that, they've not said G20, but, international events are taking place and everything else. And there's been a standoff. You've seen there's some abuse being alleged by the services secretary against the AAP minister. There's been, in the last 7 days after the judgment has come, there's been a lot of to and fro between the Lieutenant Governor and the AAP government. Is that the reason why the government of India did what it did? And they are justified to do so?
I hope and pray not. If so, it is the most foolish kind of reason I've seen trotted out. Tell me, who is creating confrontation day in and day out? You have to answer. You see, to every action, there is some reaction. Tell me who is the initiator of this confrontation. Put your hand on your heart and tell me who. In every which way, obstruction, delay, recalcitrance, stubbornness, it's by the LG. Then a judgment comes. You pass this ordinance. Who's provoking? Who's creating a provocation? Despite that, I have no doubt in my mind that constitutional authorities do not function flippantly, at least as far as the NCT side is concerned, when there are foreign dignitaries. That's not the point. But the point is you have left nothing except provocation, humiliation, attack, obstruction, delay, stubbornness. That is not the way. I mean, when the constitutional framers made 239AA, they did not put everything there that how will you sneeze and how will you walk and what will you dress and how will you sit. They expected nobility, restraint, grace from you.
And this attacks the very heart of the federal structure.
And the larger issue is autonomy, decentralization, federalism, I already said. Why did you make Delhi at all then? That's the question which the court will answer again, I'm sure, with a thumping majority against them, because there's no need to make Delhi. You might as well have Delhi as part of some national territory administered directly by the central government. You gave Delhi, this is actually a huge insult to Delhiites. Every Delhiite who wants to have autonomy, who can vote out a Nikamma government and vote in a non-Nikamma government, it is for them to decide whether you are Nikamma or not. It is not for some other civil servant to decide, not for some other. And tell me one thing, which administration can you run? Who are the administrators? They are civil servants. Can you run anywhere in the country?
And what is the accountability? They're not accountable.
If I am not accountable to you, but I have to run with you, how do you run it? So I think this is absolutely sad. I feel more sad than angry.
So here you have it from the noted constitutional expert who really fought this case in the Supreme Court, Mr. Abhishek Singhvi, saying what he plans to do. We'll have to wait and see whether the Supreme Court intervenes. They've never ever stayed an ordinance. We'll have to wait and watch and see how things proceed.